Well, hey everyone, it's me, Eric Kimball. I'm out here in my shop, as it is, and I have something kind of different for you. I actually have a script here. I'm not going to read it word for word to you. It's just kind of for me to stay on track, to keep this tight and focused. Numerous times over the years of my career in the building trades, it was about 25 years, I've been with a group of men and the lunchtime discussion turned to job site accidents. Accidents that the guys experienced or that they saw someone else experience. Such discussions are always of interest because there are lessons to be learned in every accident. This even happened one time when I was working as an instructor at a local vocational high school in the building trades program. The boys in the class didn't have job site experience or life experience that way, but they had life experience nevertheless. And they were showing scars and talking about broken bones and things like that. And there was one boy near the end of the discussion who had been listening to everyone, and he said, "That's nothing." And he unbuttoned the front of his shirt and he says, "I got shot in the chest." And it turned out that he did get shot in the chest. He had the scar there and he had the story. And the story was that a friend of his accidentally shot him in the chest, just missing his heart, with a .22. So accidents happen. In the 1990s, I wrote numerous how-to articles and I did tool reviews for Fine Home Building magazine. This was back before the internet and YouTube, when people actually read magazines. Right? Remember that? Part of the experience of writing for Fine Home Building was going to Newtown, Connecticut, or having the editors come here to New York for photographs, and we could spend some time talking about construction and building and remodeling and things like that. And I once suggested to the senior editor at that time, his name was Kevin Ireton, that it would be a good idea, I thought, to have a regular feature in the magazine that focused on various job site accidents that readers have seen or experienced. It could be titled Accidents We Have Known, or something to that effect. My idea never materialized in the magazine, but there were occasional articles about safety that were always instructive and well worth reading. In fact, Kevin himself wrote an article about the time he cut one of his fingers off with a table saw when he was working in the trades, when he was just starting out. So all of this brings me to the point of this YouTube video, which is to first tell you about some job site accidents that I've experienced myself. I never had a serious accident. I never had to go to the hospital or emergency room. I did, however, on 4 different occasions, have to take coworkers to the emergency room or a doctor for an accident. Now, briefly, I'm going to try to keep it brief because I know that's important with YouTube videos. I'm going to share with you a few of the accidents that I've experienced in my career. And then I'm going to ask you in the comments to share any experiences that you've had. First of all, I was 23 years old and I was doing some woodworking. And I had a small piece of wood. It's a square of wood that I could hold in my hand. I don't know what it was for, but for some reason I wanted to, it was 3/4 of an inch thick. I do remember that. And I wanted to drill a 3/8 inch hole part way in. I think I was countersinking for a screw or something like that. I was going to put a plug over it, right? So I had one of those avocado green Black & Decker drills. First drill I ever bought. It had a cord on it like that long. It was orange. And I had a nice sharp 3/8 inch brad point bit, and I'm holding the block of wood in my hand like this, and I take the drill bit in the drill, and my intention is to just drill in a little bit. But that bit went right on through the wood, just like that, and I have to this day a roughly 3/8 inch diameter squirrely looking little scar in my palm. Now, that is a really stupid accident. In fact, it's a no-brainer, right? You never do that. That's a no-brainer. And in fact, I have since realized that it was a literal no-brainer. No kidding. I think it was Rush Limbaugh who used to say that the brain is not fully developed until you're an adult. And so I was like 23 years old. My brain was not fully developed. I looked this up on the internet. I'm going to read this to you, just a sentence. The prefrontal cortex of the brain, responsible for skills like planning, prioritizing, and making good decisions, finishes developing in the mid to late 20s. It was a literal no-brainer. My prefrontal cortex was not fully developed. That isn't to say that I'm making excuses, because it was just plain stupid, and I'll take responsibility. Here's something more that I found that I find kind of disturbing when I was looking that up about the prefrontal cortex. Intelligence peaks from age 25 to 60. They didn't say in that particular article what happens after 60. I'm 66. I got an idea what happens. And if you're over 60, you probably do too. The next is utility knife slice to my fingers. Same thing on the weekend, working at home. I didn't have a workshop. I'd work at home. I was using a utility knife. And I think most job site accidents or workshop accidents involve utility knife cuts. And in fact, 2 of the people that I took to the hospital had pretty serious cuts from a utility knife that slipped. Well, I ended up cutting my finger. It's like a 3/4 inch cut right across here. Okay. It so happened that my wife worked for a doctor. She was a medical office assistant. It was a local doctor in town. It was the weekend. She had assisted him many times with stitches in the office. So she said, I can stitch that. She went to the office. She got the suture with a little needle on the end, and she stitched me up. So I tell you that to just say that you can stitch yourself up. I now have sutures. She doesn't work for the doctor, hasn't for years. And I also have butterfly bandages. And those butterflies probably would have taken care of that without stitches. The shocking experience. I had a shocking experience. If you are electrocuted, that means that you are killed by electrical shock. I wasn't killed, but I feel like I almost was. I'm not going to read you this except for one little paragraph. This book right here, Anyone Can Build a Tub-Style Mechanical Chicken Plucker, the book that I created in 2002 and that totally changed my life. In here, I have a introductory chapter about safety, and I talk about a truly shocking story. What happened was, early in my career, I was down on a lakeside. We were working on a boathouse, my boss and another employee and me, and I was kneeling on the ground. I had a board over my other knee. You know, I was going to cut it off with a saw. I'll read the what happened when I pulled the trigger. At that moment, the saw turned on, and so did I. The peaceful stillness of the lakeside setting was shattered by the involuntary, blood-curdling scream that emanated from my mouth. I was getting the shock of my life, and it seemed as though it would never end. I frantically tried to let go of the saw, but my fingers were paralyzed in a death grip. I even tried to throw the saw. It was out on the end of my arm like this. I was trying to let go of it and throw it. Couldn't do it, but to no avail. Then I stood up, and thank heavens, my fingers released. The point of that in the book is that I encourage people to have a ground fault circuit interrupter extension cord like this right here. It's a good idea. Always a good idea. Now, with Fine Home Building Magazine in mind, I can recall, I don't recall the exact details, but I remember, and it's stuck in my brain, the story that was in there years and years ago about a guy who was in a crawl space. It was a damp crawl space. He was on his back. I think he had a t-shirt on. So he's connected to the ground, and he was using some sort of a power tool, and he pulled the trigger and it killed him. Killed him dead. But don't take that possibility lightly. Next one, table saw kickback. This table saw right here. I was cutting a piece of plywood. Now, this happened so fast that it's like I hardly remember what happened, but I know what happened. I was pushing a fairly large piece of plywood through the saw. This is not a fairly large piece, but this is a piece of plywood, and I pushed it through the saw. And as I got past the saw, I let the board down on the top of the blade. And that thing pivoted around and hit me right in the gut, right in the solar plexus. It happened in a split second. And I was instantly on my knees, gasping for breath, thinking to myself, oh no, what have I done? I thought I had really damaged myself. Thank God I had not. I had a mark, I had a red mark and a little bit of a scuff to my body, but wow, that was a close call. And you can bet, having experienced that I never make that mistake. I am hyper vigilant about not letting the board, after I cut it, drop down on that blade. Hyper vigilant. Now, people have commented and criticized me in a previous video for not using a push stick. All right, I have push sticks. I have a push block right here, Bench Dog Tools push block, wonderful push block. This one's all curved up, and I have this one, which is also excellent. And I use these all the time. I have a feather block, is that what they call a feather board that goes in here? I use these things, but there are times when I don't. And I'll tell you something, my plans don't always come to fruition, but it's kind of my plan to build a shop, to once again have a workshop, a wood shop. And I want it really so that I can have my grandchildren in the shop and I can teach them and show them, and so they don't grow up to be helpless adults. You know, you want kids to learn these things, and I can teach them a lot, just as I did with my sons when they were little. But I wouldn't want to have this saw in there. I would want to have a different saw, and I would get a different saw, and I'd have a splitter or a riving knife. Yeah, it would be right. This saw is not right. This is a saw I learned on. This is a saw I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable with any table saw. But the point is, I wouldn't want you or my children or my grandchildren to use this saw unless their prefrontal cortex had totally developed, if you know what I mean. All right, I got one more. Oh yeah, kind of a shop-related accident. When I was, where'd it go? When my kids were home, they're all in their 30s now, but when they were home, when they were young, we made Spud guns. You probably are familiar with Spud guns. I pulled this out of the rafters of one of my sheds this morning, and just to show you. And why do I have it? Well, it's sentimental value, I think. But anyway, I made a couple of these, and one day I was in my workshop and I was gluing one of these together, and I was trying to get I wanted to make sure that the sparker right here worked. I had just glued this up. All right, picture this. I had just glued this up. I set it down on the floor like this in my shop, and I had there's a mouse nest in here. I was standing here like this, and I had the sparker here, and I looked down like this, and I clicked it, and I remember distinctly, clearly. I think your brain works really quick at times like this. I remember seeing the spark and then a little blue flame. And I thought to myself, oh no. And that blue flame, it became like a fireball that blew out the top of this. And I'm looking right down there. I didn't have enough time to move my head out of the way. And so I get this fireball right into my eye. But I had my glasses on, thank God. And my son was watching. He started laughing. He thought it was funny. Must have been like a cartoon. It burned my eyebrow off, okay? And it gave me an instant sunburn on mostly half of my face. But I was okay. The glasses saved my eye. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have those glasses. Happened in a flash. PVC fumes are flammable. That's the point here. And my prefrontal cortex was fully developed by that time. So I don't know. I'm drawing to a close here. The bottom line is that I've had some close calls when working at various projects over the years, and I'll bet you have too. With that in mind, I invite you to share your experiences in the comments below. The objective here is to promote safety, by learning from the experiences of others with your input below. This video could prove to be the most valuable and important one that I've made in the last 10 years of making YouTube videos. That's it, folks. I welcome your comments, your experiences, and I thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.